just wanted to understand from you that has COVID-19 changed any consumer expectations from Lalpath Labs? And if yes, what is it that you've done in terms of changes and, to come to the expectations of consumers?
Right. Good morning to everybody. I think thanks for such a lovely introduction, Ashita. Okay, so COVID-19 is actually changed a lot of things. I think it's really changed mindsets everywhere. So the good thing, however, is that now health and consciousness about health has actually come to center stage. Which a lot of people may have put to the side. Now it's come to center stage. Now, so that is maybe good news for people like us. But having said that, now the expectation changes or behavior changes that we see are actually very simply put. Now there is a much more demand for safety and hygiene. We keep talking about personal hygiene. So the demand or the requirement to have demonstrable hygiene procedures at centers is something which we see consumers asking us, or when we reach out to them, they talk about it. So that's really very a key change that has happened. So obviously we are also coping with that requirement. We have over the time of the lockdown kind of designed the system where all our collection networks now follow social distancing norms inside. We marked out grids for standing, alternate seating, a temperature check before entry, only masks. Masks have to be worn by patient attendant. Phlebos are wearing masks and face shields. So a lot of safety precautions at the physical level. Also, we are also doing a lot of work on digital capability enhancement for our own centers as well as franchises, because we now want to do as much less contact as possible. And some of them are under development, some of them have been launched, but as much less contact as possible, as much less time spent as possible within the center. So those are some things that we are currently working on.
Okay. And for the same things, you're getting your franchise partners also equipped? That's the same transfer happening?
Yeah. So what we have done is, so franchise partner, for the physical location, what I talked about, we have kind of enabled, or at least we have rolled out a full SOP on how to manage the social distancing norms, safety of patient. Also, we need to think about safety of the staff, because the healthcare workers are kind of in touch with patients day in and day out. So, they should not, firstly, they should be safe and they should not become a source of, spread. So, the safety of the staff is equally important. So there are a lot of protocols that we rolled out for the all the centers, and we are also now started digitally enabling our centers. So we have enabled them to do home collection. We have enabled them to if the patient kind of has our app, even through the franchisees, we have enabled them to be able to track the phlebo, do the digital payment, track their report status. So all that is getting integrated even for our franchisee partners.
Okay. That's very interesting. So we should put health workers' safety first. And so since it's being followed by all the franchisees, it gives them, some kind of assistance in R&D and what is it that they look forward to do. So anything in terms of, so what I've understood in past 2 decades is that organizations of different levels, whether it is a small or a mid or a large organizations, go through their own change management system across products, processes, people, which we, in your case, the target segment would be consumers. So how Lalpath Labs has taken up all 3 things with respect to changes, for the consumers as well as for the partners?
So you talked about process, product, people. Are you specifically talking about COVID related or generic, if you are asking?
Generic, it's more about, let me put it a perspective differently. That, we've seen you starting as a family business, which I remember when Ashita used to go to Connaught Place and meet Dr. Lal himself. So that's our relationship. Is started with Franchise India, goes back, and then we saw company moving into a professional structure. A lot of professionals were invited, and a lot of changes happened in the organization, from technology, from process management.
Yeah.
And we also have seen that overall diagnostic space, which started with very clearly a doctor reference point, and you were able to create yourself a credible brand where a patient started even demanding that. Even a doctor used to write go to this, and the patient should say, no, I will go to Dr. Lal. So there was a preference change on the trust and so on and so forth. And especially now with COVID, I think it will go even more enhanced, because people would trust now even more to the branded diagnostic labs like yourself and a couple of other credible ones, more than an independent, homegrown run. Even if it is a doctor recommending that, people would still ask for going to a more branded environment. So you've seen those changes. So what Ashita is trying to say is that how your products, services, processes, your relationship with the patients over the time has evolved, and where do you see next 6 months to 1 year? Is this a lot of changes also further going forward?
Right. Okay. Understand. So let me kind of start with the the basic thing about diagnostics is obviously fundamentally very simple. Where a patient comes, we take a sample and we test it and give a report, right? So underlying thing is very, very simple. So the key thing there is to ensure that we are giving a quality report and we are giving it on time, right? Those are the two things which we have to ensure. Now, in a single unit setup, the person at the location can manage and control everything. So the issue is that when we start scaling, there are a lot of challenges of managing now quality and time, right? And that is what we've been able to manage. And we've been able to manage it quite well through what we keep saying as a hub and spoke model, where we consolidate testing and we spread out collection. What it helps us do is it helps us reach out to many more consumers, many more patients, many more geographies, and by consolidated testing we are able to manage the quality much better, put in the latest equipments, technology, so that the human error chances reduce significantly. Parallelly, we also build a very, very strong and dynamic logistics system, because these whole samples that need to get transported from the collection network to the lab has to be under in such a fashion that the sample integrity is maintained. So that is another key focus area, where if the sample integrity is not maintained, then obviously the results will not be good. So we kind of work very, very closely with the teams to ensure that the logistics network is also up to mark. So the three things what we are managing is, therefore a lot of technology interventions are coming to manage logistics, manage the network, the collection network, and also the testing. So there is technology being built under testing. There is technology in logistics, and we are also doing a lot of technology enablement, because the franchisee network and our own collection network is now so far and wide that we are doing a lot of technology interventions there as well. So managing this change is a step-by-step process. I think each time we scale, we also now have a template. If we enter a new city, what kind of processes to follow? When you are expanding into the city, what kind of processes to follow? So we try and build as many standardized templates as possible for people on the ground to know what exactly is expected of them to do, and so that they can follow those processes clearly.
Appreciate. And is the profile of a franchisee also evolved? Would you
sorry, your voice is very low currently.
Okay, so I'm saying that your franchisee is also evolved. As a profile of a franchisee which you used to take earlier, and now who you prefer and how it is evolved.
So the franchisee profile, in my view, is evolving. right? So and why I say evolving is that, you know, a lot of the franchisees were always seen as single unit franchises, right? We are now even moving to a model where we are trying to do multi-unit franchising, where we want a partner who can maybe handle multiple collection center units, and, you know, gets a scale of operation themselves, as well as, you know, has a much stronger relationship with the company and is invested with the company. So we are looking at a model like that going ahead. Uh, there, you know, people who want to do multi-unit franchising are obviously slightly different in terms of profile compared to maybe people who would be doing a single unit franchising. But that is still evolving. What we want is franchisees who are really interested in healthcare, and this is a very highly transactional job. You know, you got to deal with patients every day, and each patient is as important as the next one. So therefore, you know, it's a very high transactional job. So people who have some bit of healthcare experience, exposure is preferred, and people who are willing to spend time and energy in this job, in this franchisee role, is also very important, because just letting it being done by employees that they hire, you know, sometimes can lead to quality issues.
No, very helpful. I think you're right, and most of the companies which is more established now look at a little bit what I call multi-unit franchise, or even upgrading their current franchisees so that they can take additional role, and because they become performers, they know how to operate the business, they know how to contribute within the business. And I think at Franchise India, we're seeing a huge change, especially post-COVID, that we are now getting a lot of operator franchises. You know, earlier we used to get a lot of investors, what we call the absentee franchisees, who invest in the business, but they don't want to really contribute on a day-to-day basis, especially on the micro businesses like yours, where it's best if a franchisee himself operates the business.
Right.
One, he brings in better quality, better patient reassurance. Third, his efficiencies become better. His cost of management becomes better because he can get both incomes, what I call return on investment and return on time. Because he's putting
Yes.
his own time, it is also
Time. Yeah.
very helpful. So it's always great. And now I think you will see going forward, a lot of entrepreneurs would come in who would like to run and operate that business, and that would be the
Right.
greatest thing, because you will be much more better value creation at the. What they would obviously need is a lot of training. So my next question to you is, how training is significant for you in Dr. Lal, and what kind of training cycles you run, and now particularly with the people not moving. So is there a digital platforms being created to train your franchisees?
Yeah, so training is, like you rightly said, a very important part of this whole franchising effort of ours, because what we don't want, or rather what we want, is that each patient, whether they come to a Lal Path Lab own center or a franchise center, should get the experience which is similar. So the blood collection experience has to be similar, and, you know, so therefore a lot of training goes into each franchisee that we set up. So, you know, the phlebo, who is actually the person who draws the sample, is certified by our own team of doctors. So unless a phlebo is certified, we do not let the phlebo start drawing blood, right? And therefore, you know, we ensure that any new franchisee that opens up have their phlebo certified by us, and the certification process itself has theoretical as well as practical training inbuilt. Now, in the scenarios, like we said, we have now so distributed. We have rolled out a digital platform where we are doing quite a lot of the theoretical training, where, you know, the actual phlebotomy skill is checked, and, you know, some inputs given. There are certain technical inputs in terms of, you know, the order of draw, as we call, which vials need to be filled first, and then which second, which third. You know, there is a protocol that has to be followed around that. So those things are checked maybe on a physical sense. And ongoing training now has become online. We have even created, you know, a portal for each of our franchisees where regular training programs are loaded, and, you know, phlebos owners are expected to complete those trainings. We will be also, shortly start program where we'll also mechanism for our franchisees, quality of the Flebo, the patient rating, and also, completing trainings on time, and a lot of other parameters will be put together to start a rating mechanism as well, which will keep telling us, people who are following and maybe people who are not, and therefore how do we intervene and get them up to the standard.
Yeah, I think that's what we call it a ERR program. How do you really encourage, recognize, and reward your franchisees going forward, and they start appreciating the fact. And this is a more what I call internal recognition and also external recognition program.
Yes.
Yeah. So, when we're talking about franchisees, understandably, Dr. Lal Path Labs is an old organization, and you've been into franchising. So I still remember I used to meet him at the Hanuman Mandir office that they had earlier. Yes. So, those days, that was the time when Dr. Lal was stepping up and finding out partners, which shared his vision in terms of what he wanted to do. Now, till today, so you've had it's been so many years, it's been over 2 decades that your partners are on board. So how do you maintain the relationship with them? Because there'll be instances wherein probably the mindset would not change, or you would want them to do something which is, which they've not been doing when you introduce something. So how do you manage and take that thing further with them?
So I think first is for us to really understand that, there is a meeting ground, and, I firmly believe that the franchisees and the partners who are with us are in it because they like what they do, and end of the day, they feel they are remunerated well and they are making a decent return on their investment and time. As long as those parameters are met, there is no reason why, franchisee partners are not going to be aligned to what the company is thinking. And I think what we have done always is that as we introduce newer things, we always keep in mind, how is this going to deliver? So how does it benefit the patient? How does it benefit the partner? Or at least, initiatives which benefit the partner, benefit the patient. And then, once we ensure that the programs are designed in that manner, it is easier to roll out and get partners to accept that. Sometimes, there could be government related compliances which may come on, which may not be there in the past. And, being a part of a leading chain, they all understand that, yes, following the law of the land is equally important. One cannot just say that, that can't be followed. So partners are equally involved, and therefore they will take these, steps to ensure that, they are compliant, and we ensure that, new programs are designed in a way that we remain the leading player, right? So newer things are for the benefit of the patient and the partner. So unless as long as we meet those criteria, I have not seen cases where, it's difficult to roll out a program.
Very helpful. Yeah. And I have a question for you, and these markets where, we're seeing that branded players like you, especially in healthcare, would draw a lot of trust from the patients and other sectors. So at this stage, would you see a conversion franchise a huge opportunity for you? Because I feel that a lot of independent operators would see now very difficult to survive without being a part of a network. And are you open for shifting a lot of these mom and pop independent, both the diagnostic clinics and the collection points, to convert with you? And if yes, what are the criteria? How do you really skill them up to come down to your standards and so on and so forth?
So I think that's a very, very interesting question. Now, you see, so let me just kind of break it up into two parts. One is, somebody who's running a lab, right? And lab is where testing is happening, maybe an independent lab. and there could be somebody who's running an independent collection center, right? So these are, in my view, slightly different in terms of paradigm. So somebody who's running a lab, and there for us, we look at it from multiple lenses. Is that there are geographies where we believe we can tie up or even invest or buy out people who are willing to do that, where we need a testing footprint, and we believe that an existing footprint might be a faster way, whereas Lal Path Lab predominantly does organic testing labs, but there are opportunities that exist where we are willing to consider that. However, there will be geographies where we don't need the testing footprint. There, what we do is, if there are labs who also want to tie up with us, we try and have a conversation where they can decide to stop their testing and become a front-end collection arm of ours. And we have a program which we are currently developing also, where we can kind of make them really a much high-tech, high-tech collection center, where the consumer and the patient experience can be enhanced significantly. But the testing will still happen in our existing testing hub that we may have nearby. So that is one possibility. Now, given the current scenario, there is a chance that some of this might get accelerated, but this is something which, as a model, exists. Second is, if there is an independent collection center who wants to tie up with us, I mean, that to me is a much simpler process, where we've got multiple ways they can reach out to us, through the call center, through our website, maybe through any other mechanism, and we evaluate where we have opportunity and opening. So, like one of the things we talked about, is we also will not keep densifying the network just for the sake of it. We densify the network where we see potential and opportunity, because we also take care of our existing partners, right? So therefore, any new person who comes on board will get evaluated for location, for their own set of skills or whatever they bring onto the table, and then we can decide whether the same location is possible or an alternate location is required. So that is a much simpler one. I think the lab conversion is a slightly more not that simple. It's a bit more complicated process, but yes, we have a program for that as well.
Sure, because I personally feel that in these times, especially, we have been reached by a lot of independent operators who now don't see running that business independently. Either they are open for some kind of M&A opportunity, or they're looking for a conversion, or even some kind of a relationship where they can become associated with a much more structured, because I think the patient acquisition cycle, patient management cycle would be best managed by the larger brand. And this this whole life cycle of a patient experience moved from what I call unorganized to organized, organized to specialized, and specialized to personalized. And this life cycle of the change would best be managed by when you are a very large company and you have that kind of capabilities, support, technology, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, independent operators have absolutely no ability to manage that life cycle. And I think that one of the areas, that's why the diagnostic space was the first to get really organized. And my next question is more for our audience to understand, because a lot of people are on Facebook Live, for people to understand how much is the percentage now from what I call the unorganized independent operators to the branded more operators like you. What is the percentage look like, even in the larger sense?
So we don't have a very active that we look at the diagnostic chains. If you look at diagnostic chains, we still would be in the ballpark of 15 to 17% of the market. But there is also a lot of hospitals who are involved in diagnostics, so they may have close to 30-35%. The independent network is still close to about 50% of the market.
So there's a lot to go, and I think we need to shift. So which is a big
Yes.
story for for you. And I tell this if we look at consumer electronics, it's now about 54% already being converted. So,
Right.
And I think healthcare is much more responsible and much more important. So I see in next 2 to 3 years, a big change would happen, and it's an opportunity, obviously, for a company like yours, which is ahead of times and already done a lot of work, groundwork, and very professionally managed. So I think you will be able to take that lead of that conversion cycle as it starts becoming more and more important. Ashta, over to you.
Yeah. So, since we're talking about franchising, so wanted to understand, having said that you've already got a network, which is nationwide, but what are the regions, that you're looking for finding out franchisees, and what is the number that you financial year as to what are the expansion plans?
So you see, we have a constantly increasing number, and because you see, India as a geography is so far and wide that whatever we have is never enough. So every year, anything between 300 to 400 kind of numbers, we keep adding. This year also, we will add similar numbers, maybe slightly more. And, geographically, although we are present, like I said, there are always pockets which are exposed. So there are 2 or 3 mega trends, because you see, urbanization is still increasing. So even if I say Delhi, which I am really available at maybe so many spaces, but even when I will go out in Delhi, I will see that there are locations where we may not be present, right? Because now the urbanization in Delhi will also keep increasing. Every 2 years, every 3 years, we'll realize that, okay, now here's a new pocket where we don't seem to have presence. So those opportunities always keep coming, but we are looking at, expanding in Delhi, Haryana, UP, Punjab, Rajasthan, Bihar, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh. So all of these and some specific cities in South and West also are kind of on our radar right now.
And overseas, what is your international plans? I mean, we have somebody writing from Mauritius and want to tie up there, and I think we last connected was some of the opportunities which you're looking in Asia, Southeast Asia, and so on. So what is the international plan? Because I personally feel India should be taking opportunity to the world, and especially to the developing world. And I feel that there can be a huge opportunity for Dr. Lal Path to be available in Central Asia and a lot of other areas which I think have big demand available. So what is your international plan and how it is unfolding?
So right now, our international business is kind of, we are trying to consolidate in South Asia first. So we kind of set up companies in Bangladesh and Nepal to start with. And, those are again huge potential markets. We do quite a lot of, samples from Middle East countries in Africa as well. And but there we don't have our own testing network. We will take the specialized or super specialized kind of requirements from there, and we bring it to our national reference lab in Delhi, and we test and give the results out. So that setup is there. We are thinking of maybe expansion. So if there are any people who are interested, they can write into us, go onto our website and drop a reference, and somebody from the international marketing team can get in touch with them.
Very helpful. Over to you, Ashta.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So now, one question that everybody would want to know is, about the mass testing of population, and just wanted to hinting on, the COVID-19 test. So if you can, just elaborate that on a bit, and is there some opportunity for franchisees there, possibly or not?
For COVID testing?
Yes.
So you see, to me, and this is my personal opinion, because this is not a stated company, etc. thing. But I think the situation is really evolving, and we are right now really at the beginning of the whole thing. So right now, COVID testing is completely controlled by the government policies. They are defining who are the people who can be tested, right? The processes that you need to follow to book a test, and then the reporting, because the each state and ICMR together have formulated a lot of policies, and that is to do more so because it's in a state where it is still a pandemic. Now, given the length and breadth of our country, maybe it's going to take some time to control this pandemic. I think once the pandemic is under control, I think post that there is a possibility that there would be relaxations in the way testing can be done, and if and when those relaxations happen, I think that time there will be opportunity for private players as well as people who are on the network, because this would obviously need a lot more specialized sample collection and transportation mechanism. So we'll have to just understand the modalities and what rules are getting played out. But to me, right now there is really not that possibility, but most likely there will be something in the future.
All right. Okay. So is this, the scenario affected your expansion plan in any way, or it's been normal in that sense for the company?
No, it is definitely not normal. I think when the first lockdown started, there was obviously a huge demand shock as well as a supply constraint. So even keeping our centers open was a challenge, where getting our people to reach centers. Governments are also formulating the rules, and they weren't clear what is essential, what is not. Is diagnostic services essential or not? So it took us quite a bit of time to get our network up and running. A lot of our partners had issues where maybe some of their staff went back to their hometown and weren't able to come back, etc., etc. So a lot of those challenges are there, which we have overcome the last month or so, and now so therefore we definitely had a pause in terms of expansion. However, what we see is with the unlock 1 having started, there is a semblance of movement. So patients now are coming back, whatever they had postponed, and a lot of people seem to be now thinking about coming back. So we are going to, as we move closer to normalcy, obviously some of our paused plans will be back on the table.
Okay. That's interesting to know. And what is it in terms of when we talk about franchising and their partners? So understandably these are diagnostic services, but do you position that as wellness also? Because now people will be more inclined towards getting themselves safer, or to be conscious, So is there something that you would want to do as a precautionary thing for people, and would that be rolled out at a national scale?
So you see, wellness is actually a very wide area, right? I mean, it can start from mental wellness, to a lot of other things related to wellness. So what we have done is that we have been working quite strongly in the area of preventive testing and preventive checkups, right? That's one thing which falls right into our ambit. That's one thing which we have done, and we've also rolled that out through our network, including all franchisees. And thankfully, that part of the business vertical is actually catching on and has quite a bit of traction. Now, with the new post-COVID scenario, we'll have to really evaluate: is there any other idea, beyond this preventive testing? Is there something else, some other step out thing that we may have to think about? But for us, actually, the way we approach wellness is to see that there is a lot of chronic patients in the country, people who have diseases that they have to manage. So for us, we believe that will be our first kind of area where we would like to help patients manage their diseases, and to me that's kind of wellness, because otherwise wellness has dimensions which can go quite outside our current purview.
Sure, but as any brand and any healthcare brand eventually goes into a lot of other areas which we call the unlock the brand value. So you have become a very credible healthcare brand, and there are many multiple healthcare opportunities out there. Look at some of other companies which have gone from from a primary care to a specialty care, and from all the verticals from preventive to curative to wellness. So do you see in future, because now you are a public company, do you see a future you have opportunities coming in other sectors of healthcare or other categories, staying within healthcare, but other categories also? Is this something on mind?
So we obviously, continue to evaluate all types of possibilities. The first thing, however, that we know for sure is that even in our core area, there is a huge amount of potential. So you just did the simple math that 15 to 50%. And when we even look at our geographic footprint, we have quite a lot of the country still available for us to expand. So there is a huge machinery that is running to ensure that the core business continues to grow. And as a company, obviously, we will keep evaluating step out opportunities. What can be done. Which businesses can be built. What is our core area, and what value addition do we do to any new opportunity that may be there. So those things are will continue to be evaluated. And right now, given the COVID scenario, there is a chance that wellness and hygiene and these things are going to come more towards center stage. So there could be opportunities that we may evaluate, but as of now, there is nothing concrete on the table.
Sure. A lot of companies have also used licensing, so they sometimes don't get themselves, but they extend their brand to do that. But I think that's far, as rightly said, at this stage you have much more opportunity available within your own network. But I always feel that because the kind of subscriber base you create, the kind of patient base you would have today, there's a lot more you can do in the wallet share. So what they are consuming. I mean, it can be even more of products. So it can be health related products which they would trust you on that. So there would be, I think, going forward, and opportunities which I think you would consider looking at the kind of audience you've created. What else you can give to audience with the same trust they can buy and consume. Ashita, over to you.
Yeah. So having said that, that we're doing this for franchisees, just wanted to understand that is there more of diagnostic collection centers you would look at expansions for, or the labs, or both?
So we expand both, but you see, labs is something that we don't franchise. So we all the testing labs are owned and run by Lal Path Labs. Collection network is what we franchise. So so expansion will keep happening, because you see the lab and the collection network go hand in hand. Like I said, if you look at a hub and spoke model, unless we have a testing hub, the spoke will not survive. So therefore, it goes hand in hand. And we invest in the lab, and then also in a lot of technology, and we even set up sometimes our own collection centers, but more often than not now we would prefer to have a franchise partner expanding the collection network, and so that part of it will remain largely franchised.
And just for a lot of people are asking about performance. I don't want to get into numbers and so on so forth, which I think they can get in touch with you on financial. But a good performing collection center, what kind of numbers on sales front they can do? How many, I mean, more from a throughput viewpoint, how many samples they would be able to turn around and so on so forth? Some very top performing.
So I think, to me, top performing in this category is very, very relative. And the way I would look at it would be very different. The way I would look at it is that what is the return on investment, or what is the absolute sum of money you are making month on month. So in this business, because cost structures are different in different geographies. So the rental in, let's say, Delhi versus the rental in Balia is so different, right? So it's chalk and cheese. When I set up the network, what I will try and do, the models that we have ensure that there is a decent return on investment, and the absolute amount of money that a franchisee makes every month, and that is benchmarked to the geography that one is operating in. So therefore, it can start from as low as 7 to 10 patients a day, and it can go as high as 50 to 60 patients a day. So it depends on, like I said, the geography and the whole structure of how the return on investment or the absolute sum of money that has to be made every month.
And how, I mean, I just a side question, because I like a lot of, I think in this time, especially with COVID, a lot of regulatory changes would come in, because especially on direct to home healthcare. And you've been already been doing that. Most of your samples are normally, if you dial in, they come and pick up then dial in. How do you see that market really changing? And especially on the medicine side, I mean, is there a viewpoint you have on what is going to happen to direct to home healthcare?
So home healthcare or home collection, at least in the in diagnostic service, is definitely a trend which was there, and I think post COVID that trend is likely to accelerate. Maybe more people are going to that is something that we see. So therefore we are prepared, and we have also enabled a lot of our franchisee, our network. Like I said, that we are digitally enabling them, that if our patient has the app, they can even track when the franchisee Flebo is visiting. They can do digital payments to the franchisee. They can even track the report status, what the franchisee has collected. Because earlier all this was available only for the company operations, but we are now enabling our franchisees onto the technology platform, so that even the home collection is likely to see an increase in demand, and we will be enabling our franchisees to keep delivering that service in a much better and in a high-tech fashion.
Absolutely, and I also see that the direct to home healthcare services, especially on the diagnostic, would see a huge growth side, and
yeah.
require both technology, and technology would empower the whole experience flow, how the whole user experience when it is arriving, when it is done, how it is post collection, so on and so forth. And second, also, I think a lot of training would become a very important aspect, which was ignored, especially in the paramedical space. People were not really investing so much in the paramedical, and the jobs were not well paid. So I feel that going forward, this side would become very, very important side of
yes.
it. So are you also looking at setting up some training capabilities, or partnering with some empowerment programs? Because on one side we are having a lot of job issues, and here you have a huge opportunity which is going to emerge. How are you looking to bridge this piece?
So I think, let me try and answer the first part, because the second part is a bit tricky. So what we are definitely doing is all the franchisee Flebos are trained by us, right? So the company, like I said, even before we make a franchisee center go live, we ensure that the phlebotomist is trained and the franchisee is trained on some basic processes and all the systems and processes that we do for patient interaction. And similarly is it for the home collection service. So the Flebo is trained, the processes, the technology that we are giving, all that training is done by us, and there are regular updates that we keep doing with them. So training side is therefore very, very important to keep the patient experience to be top class. Now, you talked about the possibility of having more people. So as the demand increases, we obviously feel that there might be a need for franchisees. When they see that demand, they will obviously start hiring more flavors, because they will see the revenue coming, and they would hire. And as and when they are hiring, we have a protocol of training which we will obviously have all the people go through.
Sure, very helpful. So Ashta, over to you. We're coming closer to the time, and some of the last you want to take up.
I'm sorry, I was actually losing you guys in between. I'm sorry, you asked me something?
We are running out of the time, so if you have few more questions, Shanka, to take up, please ask your questions.
Yes, so there are multiple questions that people wanted to understand, Mr. Banerjee, as to what does it really take to open up a diagnostic center? And is multiple diagnostic center an option for the state where the concentration is not that much?
Right. So again, let me clarify, it's not a diagnostic center, it's a collection center, because diagnostic center definition would mean involved testing. So here we are only talking about sample collection. So like I said, what it needs is a location, and one can go onto our website and and check the requirements. But just to kind of give a very simple feedback, anything which is 250, 300 square feet with a attached toilet facility in a good location, is what is required. And we need a owner who will be involved in the business. So as long as these two basic criteria are met, then we can evaluate a person. It's just that we need to also be sure that that location is available for franchise. What I mean by that is, each of the franchises, we don't want, two franchises to be next door, right? I mean, that's also not the intention. So therefore, we have, when we do expansion plans, we identify locations and areas where we need franchises. So depending on where the interest is, then we kind of have the conversation with the partner and finalize.
Sure. So it's a very interesting model also.
Franchisee, sorry.
Yeah, we normally rate any franchise business on four big parameters. One is what we call sustainability. It's a no inventory healthcare model, so it is very sustainable, and it has both people can come to collection center and also direct to home business. It is all about scalability. It's also very scalable business. So and then affordability, which is the best part of it, because at this stage we have thousands of investors coming to us who don't want to put large capex businesses. So this is still a low capex kind of a business. And fourth, which is a very important part, is predictability. So do you do some kind of analytic also to tell that where would be how much demand and how the demand would unfold over next 4 to 6 week quarters or 8 quarters, so that the franchisee can understand that how the demand size is? And
so what we are doing is that there is a potential estimate on the basis of which we kind of allocate new franchisees, right? So based on when we are creating a new territory or a new location, we have a view on how long it's going to take to come to a break even and then go into profitability. There is a certain cycle which we discuss with the owner, and owner has to be comfortable with that cycle before we start, because each franchisee center that you open up is unlikely to be profitable from day one. So there is a cycle that one goes through. And we also are now enabling mechanisms where we will be sharing each franchisee with their individual data and analytics available on a dashboard, which they will be able to see and see what is going up, what is not going up. Because micro market forecasting we don't do. We do more of large scale forecasting. Micro market data, however, we will be able to share with our partner their relevant sales data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say in healthcare, there is a gestation cycle more than any other retail business. You cannot just open up a collection point and expect the patient to start walking in. It takes his own subscriber base to take time. So a lot of people who come with the mindset that it may be 15 months or 18 months, it take them to come down to what I call optimum performance, and maybe a 2.5 years to peak performance. that is a life cycle of any healthcare business. And if people have that patience and they are committed, the life of opportunity is much larger than any other.
Yeah. Yeah. The opportunity, after that, it is very long.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the mindset should be, that in the first 2-3 years, you're able to establish your business so well that it would then give you reward for many, many years to come, because you build a subscriber base and the subscriber base would continue to use your services and so forth. So
that's right.
So in this case, do you keep any geographical area as a constraint for franchisees?
No, we don't do geographic area constraint, but like I said, we go by potential mapping, and and also always keep in mind that if we are opening something where nearby there is a existing channel partner, then we try and see that there is enough for everybody to grow. So it is more potential mapping driven instead of geographic. But geography is one consideration, but we don't have a norm saying 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, 5 kilometer kind of thing. It is more of a potential mapping base. For some geographies, you may not want even in a 5 kilometer radius. In some geographies, you may need it in even a 1 kilometer radius.
Okay. So I understand, since Dr. Lal Path Labs has a significant presence, through the website also, and I'm sure many people would be coming on to the website for the collection. So does a franchisee get anything out of that, any lead or anything, and how does that happen?
So we are currently really working hard on this, because as of now the franchisee model is much more offline, where it is physical geography related. We are now trying to create a digital footprint for each of our franchisees. We've now got each of our franchisees who are listed separately, where they can talk about their center and what facilities, what timings, opening, close times, etc. Which when people search online, they can go directly to that center. We are also thinking about doing some more listing on Facebook, create child pages where new campaigns that we are running is also gets displayed on each of the franchisee pages, etc. So those enablements we are doing, so that the franchisees can take maximum benefit of all our company programs that we are running.
Absolutely. So Ashita, ask few questions, and then we because we've run out of time now. So if you have some last 2 questions, then we can take it up.
Yes. So is there any marketing that happens at a local level? There are a couple of people who wanted to know that it's just the support of the company that comes, or they also have to do something as an individual franchise partner?
So it is a mix. So whenever we launch a new franchisee, there is a support plan that is there, which individuals will discuss, because there could be nuances on geography to geography level. But there is a initial 3 months, 6 month kind of a support plan. But the support plan is more often than not a shared plan, because we also would like to see the franchisee commitment to building the business. And the company has a plan, and we jointly commit and spend on that plan to ensure that the initial business or initial patient walk-ins and initial promotion of the center happens. And then after that, there are a lot of programs which we again enable franchisees to do marketing for themselves. So company does more of the what would I say, generic marketing, maybe city level at times, but individual micro marketing, the franchisee does for himself or herself. But if we may also be doing city level activities, from time to time, where we participate with the franchisee.
Okay, that's great. So I think most of the queries is what they've answered. In case there are a couple of them which are left, we'll come back to you, Mr. Banerjee. Would request for a little bit of time from your side so that we can go back to them. And thank you so much. It was wonderful having you here and to learn about how Lal Path Labs is looking forward to support and help their existing as well as their prospective network. And it was lovely having you with us.
And I have
Thank you so much.
I have a last
question
for you, which is
yes, please.
14 years in lubricant business and working with multinational, now working in a healthcare and trying to make an Indian multinational. What is the difference you find?
So I think, there are differences and there are similarities. So obviously, the key difference is healthcare. I feel there is a lot of, service orientation has to be significantly high. So each and every patient needs to be served properly. So, I think that is something which is very different, because in the other businesses that I've operated, there is always this bulk mindset. As long as you get 99% right, everybody is happy, even if you get 95% right. But here, the 5% you can't get wrong. You have to get 100% right and get it 100% right every time. And to me, that's really a significant difference and a very, very different mindset that we all bring to the company and our operations. And, that's how we try and run it. So that's one thing which is very different. And the other thing is, Lal PathLabs as a company has a very strong professional team on the board, on the kind of, at the helm, coming from multiple industries. So we bring lots of learnings from different industries that we try and see, how best we can apply and give newer, benefits to our patients and the doctor community, because that's where the whole lifeline is. That's what is different, and we decide everything here amongst ourselves and try and see that the patient's best interest is always kept in mind.
Absolutely, because we have chance to work with the entire top leadership team at Dr. Lal. So you're the best in the business. So, and your contribution to both the company and overall healthcare in India is tremendous. And we
Thank you.
really value your contribution. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your kind words.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.